This is Inner Healing Paths podcast. Here we discuss the healing of the mind, body, soul, and spirit through a variety of different paths. We have emotional and spiritually minded conversations centering on ancestral healing, psychology, astrology, yoga, meditation, magic, and indigenous spiritual practices of the world. I am your host, Rosa Shetty, and I am so happy you are here. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Rosa, and today I want to talk to you about loneliness and that common emotion that everyone feels from time to time, but especially during the holidays. And the feeling of loneliness, I want you to know that it has nothing to do with the number of people that are in living with you or surrounding you. You can be in a crowded room full of people and still feel very lonely. And vice versa. You can be all alone at home and feel completely at peace and be full of joy. So loneliness is a very specific emotion that comes more from a deep grief or sadness of a missing or a longing of something or someone or a specific situation that was and is no longer, or that you wish you had. And specifically for trauma survivors, childhood trauma survivors, the sense of loneliness tends to filter and it tends to come up a lot, specifically when we get triggered, specifically when reminders of the trauma, when we get triggered with reminders of the past, when it comes up, this sense of loneliness comes through. But the sense of loneliness that comes through for trauma survivors is a little bit different. I've had so many of my clients, and I shouldn't say so many, I think I would say 90% of the folks that I've worked with, and I've been in this field since 2007. And one of the things that comes up over and over again, specifically at the beginning of treatment, is a sense of being the only person, the only one that has gone through what they've been through, that has experienced the atrocities that they've experienced. And it feels like no one could possibly understand. And therefore, why bother to share, to connect? Why bother to even address what has happened? And I want you to know that you are not alone in your experience of trauma. What happened to you more likely has been experienced by hundreds of people all over the world. But no one talks about it because there is so much shame. There is so much I guess the emotion that I'm looking for is despair. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of, but I would say it's mostly shame, deep sense of shame, because especially as children, kids don't really have the ability to rationalize and make sense of what happens to them. So anything that involves them, even when they're being hurt, is going to feel like it was their fault, because so much of their identity has not been formed. Their sense of who they are is attached to their caregivers. So if their caregivers are quote unquote good or bad, they will take that as their own identity, as their own sense of self. And when trauma occurs, that gets imprinted. So they feel like they were bad, they were at fault, they are guilty. So as adults, we carry that shame. And one of the things that I want to emphasize in this episode is that to heal shame, we must be able to acknowledge our story, to acknowledge what we went through, to acknowledge the pain. And during the holidays, a sense of loneliness is a trauma response. So if you're feeling triggered, if you're feeling lonely during the holidays, know that this is an indication that there are things from your past that have not been resolved. And the way I like to frame it is that anytime we get triggered, it is an opportunity to heal parts that we thought were already healed, that we had already worked through. But if this is coming through for you, it means that there is something there. And if you're familiar with my work and if you've been listening to my podcast, you know that I emphasize a lot connecting with our inner child. So I want to invite you, the next time you have a sense of feeling lonely, feeling like you must be the only one in the world carrying whatever it is that you're carrying, I want you to close your eyes and think of a number from 0 to 15 and go with the first number that comes to mind. And as that number comes up, visualize yourself at that age and ask that part of you to show you what it is that it needs to share with you at this moment, to share with you what area within yourself needs healing. And when you connect with that younger part within you, you will receive insight. You will receive an awareness that you may not have been aware of, because so much of what we carry is unconscious because of the pain, because of the level of trauma. Our brain is designed to help us stay alive. So sometimes it puts things out of our immediate awareness and we're not able to access specifically why or memory. When we connect with our inner child, we're connecting with our nervous system at that age. And it may give you an insight as to not specifically of a memory or what happened, although that may occur. But more likely than not, it can give you insight as to what part of your life right now would benefit from healing, and what part of your childhood this stems from. And I want to encourage you to do this each and every time it happens. It doesn't have to take more than a few minutes, but it is important to acknowledge these parts when they come through. These parts just want to be seen, want to be acknowledged. And when we start acknowledging and connecting with these parts, what you'll notice is that the power, the intensity will subside over time. Okay, so this is a very helpful self-help tool that you can start implementing now. And I also want to remind you that there is no shame or embarrassment in reaching out for help, in finding someone that is that has the experience, that has the maturity, and that has the ability to hold your story, your pain, your trauma in sacred space. And there is no shame in reaching out for help. start therapy, to see a doctor, to see someone that can help you in healing your past wounds. And that is it for now. I want to let you know that the next couple of episodes are going to be focused on trauma. I have a guest that is a poet, and she has been able to heal her sexual violence trauma through poetry and writing. And she's going to come on the podcast and she's going to share her story with you all. So I'm very excited to present you with that episode. I'm also going to have a mental health therapist that specializes in trauma share her approach to healing. And I also plan on sharing more solo episodes and expand on specific topics that come up. If you have any questions, if you have if you want to share your story with me, if you want to share your story on the podcast, reach out to me. You can email me directly, and I will have my email in the show notes. You can also DM me on Instagram, and we can go from there. Okay, but I want you to know that I do read every story that I get. I do respond to every DM that I get, and every email. So I love hearing from the listeners. I love connecting with you all. As you know, I also have a healing community through Patreon, and it's been an opportunity for me to also get to know some of the listeners in a more personable way, and learn your story and share feedback and gentle guidance with you all. I've had this community since May, and it's just been such an honor to be the guiding you in this, and to be connecting with you through these virtual meetings. And if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. I will have more information in the show notes. But have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will talk to you very soon.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope that you found it healing and nourishing to your mind and soul. If there's a friend that you think would benefit from listening to this information, please share it. Share about our podcast. If you feel called to, please leave us a review, as this really, really helps boost our presence here in Apple Podcasts, and it makes it easier for others to find us. To stay up to date on new episode releases and special events and projects that I'm working on, you can follow us on Instagram at Inner Healing Paths Podcast. And you can subscribe to my newsletter by going to my website, which is Rosa Shetty, LCSW.com. And I will include this information and links in the show notes. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to sharing with you again next time.